Hi, everybody. This week we're going to talk about plot lines to your um, class project, which people voted on. 17 of you voted, and the winner was Forever Breakfast. So that's what we'll be using as our source material as we move forward. We're also going to look at production planning. So thanks to all of you who submitted ideas. Every single one of them was intriguing and full of a lot of promise. So you should probably keep working on them for yourselves after the semester is over. Why keep it to yourself, right? So let's think about this. Your discussion assignment is going to be to come up with a very basic plot line. So you want to post at least one short idea for a potential plot line for Forever Breakfast, our class TV project. Your submitted plot line, like all discussions, is going to be open to comments and feedback from myself and the class. So you should think of it as a 30-minute episode, so it's self-contained. And don't have it directly continue into the next episode, so no cliffhangers or anything like that. I want you to think about these major elements, and again, it doesn't have to be overly in-depth. I don't want you to write scripts. I don't want you to write dialogue. I just want you to think about broad strokes. So who is mainly involved in this plot line, right? Plot lines hardly ever involve every character on the show in every plot line. Oftentimes there's two plot lines running. So just think about one, right? A new character might come in for the episode for plot purposes, and there's not a major recurring character. So who's involved, right? You want to think about certain elements that always go into a plot, which is what event kicks off this plot line? What's the first thing that happens? What are some of the things that happen as a result? And then how does the plot line end or resolve? These are the most important things to think about. Once people agree on a plot line, it's one that is has potential or one that sounds interesting or fun to work with, then you will flesh it out. And that's exactly what we will do as we move forward. But for now, I really want it basic. I want you to think about basic plot lines, right? The people involved in the show, who's going to be involved in your plot line, what starts it, what happens, how does it end, right? So just go to the TV series Plotlines discussion board to get full details on what I'm looking for you to do, okay? So now we're going to talk a little bit about production planning. So now we have a production to work towards, which is Forever Breakfast. And that was pretty much step one in our production task list, right? Coming up with ideas, discussing in your group how they might work, thinking about the styles of the production. This is all stuff in ideas, right? So now we're going to move on to production planning, which is chapters 4 and 5. And that's going to include things like planning what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, planning who's going to do what on the project, right? So getting a little more in-depth and a little more detailed about what we're going to be doing. So as you look at your book, it details that you should think of a production plan like a map, right? It's definitely there to keep you on track and to get you back on track when actually you wander off the path, because everybody does. So solid planning is essential to a good production. If you don't have solid planning, your production is really going to suffer, right? We're going to deal with the planning and the shooting of just our pilot for our TV series and not the entire series, right? So we're going to focus on one episode. You can think of this plot line as the pilot, right? You could think of just a general plot line that might come later in the series, but we're going to think of our project as a whole as the pilot. So a TV pilot is the standalone episode of a television series that is used to sell the show to a television network. So by definition, it's the first episode of a series. In the real world, sometimes a pilot will be made and then shopped around, and it takes a while for someone to buy it, or it gets passed on, right? Things like The Sopranos. The Sopranos filmed their pilot, and they didn't go into production for the rest of the series, or at least season 1, until almost a year later. So there's a discernible difference in tone between the pilot and the rest of the series, the rest of season 1. The characters seem a little different, a little older, perhaps look different. So pilot sometimes sticks out in the big picture, but that's how it works. You create a pilot, people see it, and they think, yeah, I think this has some potential and has somewhere to go, right? So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing you want to do when you're going to have a solid production plan is to make a timeline. So a timeline is just a way of estimating how long things are going to take. Our timeline is going to be theoretical since we're not actually doing a real production, but we're going to take it seriously nonetheless, right? So here's our timeline so far, as you can see on the PowerPoint. Coming up with ideas, which is what we're doing. Over there I have some sample dates that you would fill in for real. Production planning what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, right? Which we're moving into now. Here's a great example of how to approach a timeline on this slide. using an if-then structure. It's on page 22 in your book. So if you start at the end result and work backwards, you can often figure out when you need to start, right? So you need to have existing knowledge, of course, how long things typically take and the scope of your project that works best for you. But it's a good approach to use while going forward, right? So you would stop, as you can see on this chart, it starts at the end. When do we have to deliver the project, right? And then it walks you down. If we want to submit the final project by, then we need to have the final cut by. If we want to finish that cut by, we need to see it by then. So it's a different way of thinking about a timeline that some of you might find useful going forward. Work backwards instead of forwards. It's a different way of thinking. And then on this slide, you're going to see a graphic talking about allocating tasks. So as a TV project pilot producer, many upcoming necessary tasks are going to have to be allocated and staffed, right? You can't do it all yourself, and you need to start hiring people. So here's that sort of a condensed list of what we need, right? So for our purposes, each one of you is the producer or a producer on this show, which is Forever Breakfast, right? So production involves setting up the shoots, organizing the cast, the technicians, locations, dealing with the money and the permissions, looking after the production plan and the timing, making sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it and where they're supposed to be doing it, right? So some of the jobs you're going to want to fill are director, scriptwriter, camera work, sound recording, editing, costume makeups, props. And over to the right, you see more descriptions of those jobs. Each one a very important element of your larger piece, and each one super crucial that you hire someone that is going to do the best job for you and the best job for the project you're working on. In our case, or in this case, a mockumentary like The Office, but about a breakfast diner, right, that serves breakfast all day. So you're going to want people who probably worked on shows like that before, right, or at least have something that makes you think, oh, this would be a good fit, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to go onto the Plotlines discussion board, complete your submission, and participate in the Plotlines discussion board by the due date. It's a little tighter turnaround than normal because we had to take the survey, the pitch survey. So I'd still like these done by Monday. At the end of the day, I might give you till Tuesday, but we got to keep going. So think about those plot lines. Think about where you could take these characters, what could happen, and we will take it from there. All right, see you on the boards. Bye.